Psychology is the application of the scientific method to the human mind. Because of the success of the scientific method in just about everything, the paradigm of psychology is very influential in modern man's understanding of himself. This paradigm asserts that every internal problem of man is a problem of the mind, and therefore the solution will be found in the mind. This view presupposes that the mind of man is material, for only matter yields to the scientific method, and only therapies confirmed by the scientific method will be sufficient to solve psychological problems. The problem arises with the alcoholic who finds psychological methods insufficient to solve the problem of alcoholism. Cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, introspection, medication, all these methods are insufficient to free the alcoholic. The alcoholic finds himself in a situation where no human power can relieve him of his alcoholism. There is no hope for him in the material universe. So there is either truly no hope or a solution is found outside the material universe, in the spirit. Because there is no hope for the alcoholic in this material universe, we conclude that he suffers from a spiritual malady, and therefore only a spiritual solution will be sufficient for recovery. This is why the 12 steps are so powerful, because they recognize a basic truth of the human person, that there is something spiritual inside the human person, that there is something spiritual outside the human person, and that a unity can be effected between these two truths. Ultimately, because of his spirituality, man will not yield to the scientific method, and psychology will carry with it a gross misunderstanding of the human person. How do we understand spiritual things? In the 12-step process, spirituality is left kind of ambiguous. We understand that living by the spiritual principles of the program, we lead a spiritual life, and that going through the step work, we effect a profound spiritual change. But what this means is not specified. What is spirit? Is it an emotion? Is it an intuition? Is it a direction? Is it a cause? Is it a belief? Is it necessarily irrational and non-rational? Human spirituality is not necessarily irrational. In human history, there are intellectual traditions that approach human spirituality from a rational viewpoint. Because human spirituality is true, it must also be reasonable. The purpose of this paper is to expose the alcoholics to some of these ideas. In my research, I have found these ancient philosophies to be deeply congruent to the modern ideas of recovery. This tells me they are true. These ideas are not necessary for recovery, but I believe that they will enrich the lives and give a deeper understanding of what it means to be human and an alcoholic. Again, what is spirit? Can spirituality be rational? I would like to expose you to the ideas of Roger Penrose. He is a mathematician and a physicist. He specializes in the mathematics of quantum mechanics, which is the mathematics of subatomic particles. He is well respected and has made significant contributions to our understanding of the universe. For example, there exists diffused throughout the universe a cosmic microwave background radiation, which are photons left over from the Big Bang, from soon after the Big Bang. Although the universe was still very hot and dense, it began to cool and expand to the point that it released a burst of gamma rays. And as the universe continued to expand over 14 billion years, these gamma rays stretched into microwaves. So these microwaves are remnants of the Big Bang. Roger Penrose did a mathematical analysis of the cosmic microwave background radiation and was able to determine facts about the state of matter soon after the Big Bang. I'm telling you so that you know that he is not some wacko out in left field. and that when he talks about the nature of mathematics, he knows what he's talking about. So, what is the nature of mathematics? In talking about mathematics, Roger Penrose uses the Mandelbrot set as an example. The Mandelbrot set is a mathematical truth that describes a certain type of fractal geometry. The Mandelbrot set was not a creation of the human mind. It was a truth that was discovered. Its existence preceded the knowledge of it. How do we know this? Because we do not fully understand the Mandelbrot set. It contains truth that we have not yet discovered. Therefore, it is a truth that exists independent of the human mind. When we think of mathematics, we think of abstracting from nature, that these ideas find their origin in nature. But the Mandelbrot set is found nowhere in nature. Therefore, it exists independent of nature. That which exists independent of the mind and independent of nature is spirit. But if it's not cognitive and if it is not natural, then what is it? Roger Penrose says that mathematics deals with objective truth, an objectivity that transcends the human mind. So truth is ultimately spiritual and independent of matter. He goes on to state that when we observe these mathematical objects, we find that they are beautiful. So beauty is ultimately spiritual. And he goes on to say, if someone were to insist that goodness were independent of mind and nature, he wouldn't argue. This idea of the immaterial nature of truth, beauty, and goodness is not new. Plato defined it 2,300 years ago. He basically said that being can be explained fundamentally as truth, beauty, and goodness, that these qualities do not find their origin in the material universe, and that when we try to define them, we see that each belongs to the other. That when we consider what goodness is, we see that it is beauty and truth, and so on with the others. They transcend definitions and are thus called transcendentals. And in an idea just as profound, if we as humans can understand immaterial truths, then there must be something immaterial within us. Just as truth, beauty, and goodness are central to understanding of human spirituality, then a spiritual program of recovery must have some relationship to the transcendentals. Dr. Silkworth said that the sensation of alcohol is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, that the alcoholic, after a time, cannot differentiate the true from the false. So the fundamental problem of alcoholism is a divorce from reality. Therefore, recovery from alcoholism must involve the rectification of the mind to truth. When the alcoholic acts against reason, he causes division within himself. He causes division between himself and others, and between himself and God. And therefore, recovery must involve knowing the truth about oneself and about others and about God. There is order in the universe, order in the stars and galaxies, order in the planets, Earth, order in plants and animals and ecosystems. And the universe is beautiful because of this order. But nothing is uglier than an alcoholic and drug addict in the grips of addiction. This ugliness comes from disorder within the soul of the alcoholic. In order for the alcoholic to have an encounter with transcendental beauty, he must undergo an internal rectification. He must submit the powers of his mind and spirit to order. Again, Roger Penrose states that if someone were to insist goodness existed independent of mind and nature, he wouldn't argue. He says this because he's a mathematician and ethics is not his profession. But I, who have recovered, who have had an encounter with transcendental goodness, I insist that goodness is immaterial. Recovery from alcoholism is basically a moral rectification. This is necessary because alcoholism is so powerful that we need to make a change at the fundamental aspect of our persons to recover, and you can't get any deeper than our morality. Moving across country or changing your friends or working 60 hours a week is insufficient. When I make moral acts, I become good. This is profound. What is human goodness? A good man knows himself and consistently and constantly gives others what is due to them. Therefore, recovery must involve introspection and paying to others what is owed.